What's good, people? In this video I'm going to show you my league starter for the Legacy of Phrecia event. The build is an Ice Nova of Frostbolts build, and it utilises a unique item called Katava's Thirst. This item is the meat and bones of our build, and without it, it does not pack the same punch. And you know what? If you're looking for a fun league starter and it doesn't cost very much to get set up, this is definitely the build to go for. 3 chaos is all it cost me to buy the things that I needed to go ahead and get set up. I'm going to walk you through the leveling process and guide you straight to the endgame. Here is the Ice Nova build you should be playing. If you like the look of this build, subscribe to my channel because my next video will be an updated version of the build and its progression further into the endgame. Thank you. In this build, we're playing as a Templar. Now the main ability we're going to be using is Rolling Magma, and we're going to link that in with Elemental Proliferation and Combustion. You get all these abilities in Act 1. Now if you think your damage isn't up to par, and maybe your single target isn't as good as what you're seeing on screen, switch to a Holy Flame Totem as well with added fire damage. This is going to massively increase the DPS. Now as you enter into Act 3, you may see your damage slightly drop off. What you want to do is you want to come here and complete the quest, Sever the Right Hand. You want to kill General Gravitius, and what he's going to be able to do is give you a quest reward, which is Firestorm. This is going to be the ability we're using all the way up until we switch to our Ice Nova of Frostbolts. So with Firestorm, we would like a 4-link setup with Firestorm, Archmage, Lightning Penetration and Inspiration. If you can't get the 4 links, go for the 3-link and take out Inspiration. We're going to be using this all the way up until we swap near around level 64, and as you can see from the video, the damage is huge. We're still using Holy Flame Totem for single targets, and that won't change until we swap. So the only gem you should need to buy from her is Inspiration Support. That costs 1 Chance Orb. You already have Archmage from the quest reward you just did. Firestorm you already have equipped, and Lightning Penetration should already be equipped as well. So the only gem you should need to buy from her is Inspiration Support. That costs 1 Chance Orb. You already have Archmage from the quest reward you just did. Firestorm you already have equipped, and Lightning Penetration should already be equipped as well. If you think your build needs more damage, just look for things like cast speed and spell damage on wands. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to run you through the passive skill tree, the way I did it. So we're going to be up here getting some elemental damage to start. We'll come down here and get some life. We're then going to be going into elemental damage, spell damage and elemental resistances, which is very handy early on. You're then going to pick up some increased area of effect nodes, and we're now going to head over through this zone. I'm going to pick up some extra elemental damage and elemental resistances through Ash, Frost and Storm. Pick up the Shaper node there, and then we're going to come up and take Elemental Overload. After you've taken that, we're going to come back down the tree and we're going to take up these mana nodes here, and we're going to use Mana Mastery, which is 10% reduced cost of mana skills. Once we've done that, we're also going to pick up Mind Over Matter. At this point now, you should be fairly defensive, so we're going to spec into some attack nodes. First of all, Crackling Speed, giving us some extra lightning damage and some extra cast speed. We're also going to take Lightning Mastery, and we're going to choose increases and reductions to maximum mana, also apply to shock effects at 30% of their value. We're then going to spec over to here into some more cast speed, and this is where we're going to get some extra damage, is here. This is called Prodigal Perfection, and it increases your maximum mana, which is great, but it also gives you 2% increased spell damage per 100 maximum mana up to 40%. At the level I took this, I probably gained an extra 20% DPS increase. I'm going to go ahead here and take some mana, some spell damage, cast speed, some life and mana as well. So at this point in the game, you should be fairly happy, and you should have already switched to your Firestorm setup. Now we're going to come back down here. We're going to take some extra life nodes, and some reduced maximum mana cost of skills. We're going to come further south and we're going to be taking some extra life nodes for survivability and some increased maximum mana nodes. If you're feeling like you're dying too often, come up to this node here. We're going to be taking Energy Shield Leech. This means that when we're casting spells, we're going to be getting some energy shield back. We're then going to be taking some masteries. In this mastery, we're going to be taking the 6% increased cast speed for each different non-instant spell you've cast recently. And in here, we're going to take 10% chance to recover 10% of mana when using a skill. We're also going to take some extra life and mana and energy shield nodes here. And then we're going to come down here and we're just going to take Iron Will. Now it says strength damage bonus applies to all spell damage as well. Take some extra life nodes, and we're going to also take these increased mana nodes. So this should be what you're looking like as you head into the maps. So this should be up to about level 60-ish with all the passives that you've got as well from the campaign. Okay, so now we're going to go over some of the gear that we need to make this build work. So the main thing is Kitava's Thirst. So what it does is it has a 50% chance to trigger socketed spells when you spend at least 100 mana on an upfront cost to use or a trigger a skill. So what we're using in this is we're using Frostbolt with greater multiple projectiles, Frost Bomb and Punishment. The way we get this to trigger is by using our Frost Blink. We use our Frost Blink of Wintry Blast with faster casting and Archmage support. This makes the mana cost 113 mana. So when we're dashing about, you have this chance to throw these Frostbolts out. Once the Frostbolts have been thrown out, you use your Ice Nova of Wintry Blast, and everywhere the Frostbolts go, the Ice Nova follows, as long as you're using the Ice Nova ability. The link we've got with Ice Nova Frostbolts is Ice Nova Frostbolts, Archmage, Inspiration, and Spell Echo. Now, once you get a 5 link, you will want to put Lightning Penetration into that, but as I've just reached Endgame, we're still not there quite yet. Our other setup that we want is Automation with Arcane Cloak, Arcane Surge, and more duration. This is going to give us a buff, which uses our mana, but gives us a lot more DPS. I've also still got my Holy Flame Totem and added lightning damage support. You can take this out at this point in the game, you don't need it. And then we also have Frostbite with increased area of effect, and this is just in case we're up against a boss that is requiring a little bit more damage. So as you can see here, Ice Nova Frostbolt is coming up at only 1 Chaos Orb. So this is the main part of our build that we're going to need, very cheap. And if we also look at Frostblink, Frostblink of Wintry Blast, this is also going to be a very cheap gem, 2 Chaos Orbs. So in total, for the main abilities that you're going to want, it's going to cost you 3 Chaos Orbs. So some of the items and the mods that we're looking for is things like increased spell damage, increased cast speed, maximum mana. They're things that are really going to help this build fly. This is a really good amulet, especially early on. It only requires level 16, it gives you increased mana regeneration rate, which is really handy. The flasks that I've got in my setup so far is a Divine Life Flask, we've got a Quartz Flask, Mana Flask until our mana regeneration gets to a point where we can just remove that completely. We've got a Granite Flask, which is really handy early on, and of course a Quicksilver Flask. We will be switching out our Mana Flask for a Silver Flask once the mana regeneration rate becomes viable enough that we don't need it anymore.